Have you ever wondered what it means to lose control not of your body, but of your destiny itself? To wake each day knowing that your thoughts are not your own, that every choice you make, every word you utter, every twitch of your soul is part of a design older than you, deeper than the fabric of time itself? That is life under Tzeentch, the changer of ways. It begins quietly. Most never notice the moment they are claimed. A whisper in a dream. A flicker of color in the corner of the eye that shouldn't exist in any sane spectrum. The sensation that reality has become flexible. Those who live beneath his gaze learn quickly that certainty is the rarest and most dangerous of luxuries. In the domains where his influence spreads, worlds warp beyond recognition, cities whose streets rearrange themselves by the hour, towers that rise and crumble with each heartbeat. Change is not just a force of nature. It is the only law. The people who dwell there breathe transformation as if it were air. They worship it. They fear it. They are it. Imagine living in a place where yesterday no longer has meaning, where your neighbors wear faces that shift like molten glass. Where knowledge is both salvation and curse. Where even faith is treacherous, for to believe in something is to invite Tzeentch to twist it into something else entirely. The peasants in the low districts of the warp-touched cities speak in murmurs, their words a tangle of fear and reverence. They tell tales of men who studied too deeply and became their own shadows, of women whose prayers turned to whispers that now echo from the walls. But beneath their terror lies devotion and unshakable belief that through chaos comes ascension. And that belief is the cruelest lie of all. Those who survive under Tzeentch's dominion learn that change is never gentle. It is a consuming fire, a slow unraveling of what you were. One day you might wake with your memories misaligned, your reflection unrecognizable, your desires rewritten by an unseen hand. The architects of fate take pride in the chaos of their flock. Each mutation, each madness, is a hymn to their god. No one dares to resist. For resistance itself is part of the plan. Tzeentch's schemes coil through existence like veins of living light. Every rebellion, every act of defiance, every moment of courage already calculated, already foreseen. You cannot outthink him. You cannot hide from him. Even in ignorance, you serve him. And so the people stop questioning. They embrace the flux. They paint their homes in ever-shifting pigments that seem to breathe. They chant in languages that rewrite themselves with every utterance. They offer sacrifices of thought, burning their memories upon psychic altars in hopes that Tzeentch will leave their minds intact for another day. But he never does. In this place, the concept of self is a fragile illusion. Minds fracture, merge, reform. Identities blend like colors in a storm. The line between human and daemon fades until both are one, and the world becomes an endless theater of transformation. And somewhere, beyond the veil of comprehension, Tzeentch watches. His laughter isn't heard, it's felt, vibrating through every atom of existence, a soundless mockery of all who dare to think they can understand him. Because under Tzeentch, understanding itself is the first sin. Have you ever asked yourself what the price of enlightenment really is? What it costs to know more than you were ever meant to know? Because under Tzeentch, knowledge is not power, it's poison. And every mind that drinks too deeply from it becomes one more candle burning in the architect's endless game of shadows. If you think this story couldn't get darker, stay with me until the end, because what you'll learn about how these people live, breathe, and think beneath Tzeentch's reign will make you question the very idea of free will. In his domains, curiosity is both a gift and a death sentence. Every citizen, from the lowest scribe to the highest sorcerer, chases fragments of forbidden truth. They don't do it out of rebellion or ambition, they do it because something deep within their souls compels them to. A whisper, subtle at first, then irresistible, drives them to study the patterns of chaos, to seek meaning in the madness. But there is no meaning. There is only change. A man might spend his life deciphering the same rune, only to discover that the symbol has rewritten itself the next morning. A scholar might climb the tower of transfigured thoughts, seeking the secret of eternity, only to dissolve into dust before reaching the summit, his essence consumed as payment for his arrogance. Every pursuit of truth ends in mutation, every revelation in madness. And yet, they cannot stop. No one can. The curse of Tzeentch is not pain, it's hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this time the answer will bring peace instead of more chaos. Hope that the next transformation will finally perfect them. Hope that the next vision will reveal purpose. But hope under Tzeentch is a weapon, and he wields it with exquisite cruelty. Those who gain his favor do not escape the torment, they ascend into new forms, creatures of shifting flesh and fractal thought. Their minds bloom with impossible insight, but their humanity withers. They become the living manifestations of paradox, the breathing sigils of his will. The people worship them, fearing them as much as they adore them. And so the cycle turns. Teacher becomes prophet, prophet becomes monster, monster becomes legend. Every fate merges into another, every soul folds back into the endless spiral of Tzeentch's design. What is life like for those left behind, the unblessed, the unchanged? Imagine existing in a world where the sky itself rewrites its colors with every sunrise, where your own reflection argues with you, where even death offers no certainty because time itself bends to your god's amusement. In this place, fear and faith are identical. Every prayer is a gamble, every thought a potential betrayal. To live here is to be a pawn who believes they're a player. And that is the cruelest illusion of all. Because in the end, under Tzeentch, there are no followers. Only pieces. Only movements. Only outcomes already written before you were born. And perhaps the most horrifying truth of all? You can never know whether you chose this fate, or if he chose it for you. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time. Have you ever met someone who begged for a miracle and then wished they'd never been heard? Under Tzeentch, miracles are abundant. They bloom like tumors, spreading through minds and flesh alike. But they never come without a cost. Those who pray for change, those who long for enlightenment, those who whisper to the great schemer for wisdom always get what they asked for. Just never in the way they hoped. The cults of Tzeentch thrive on this cruel exchange. They gather in twisted sanctuaries of thought and madness, where the air hums with psychic energy and the walls pulse like living things. They chant in tones that are not quite human, each voice a thread woven into a tapestry of corruption. And through that song, Tzeentch listens. He rewards devotion with transformation. The first changes are always subtle. A flicker in the eyes. A shimmer beneath the skin. Thoughts that echo even after silence. Then the body begins to follow the mind's unraveling, bones soften, colors leak from the veins, the voice fractures into multiple tones that speak in harmony and discord at once. The faithful call this ascension. They believe that each mutation brings them closer to Tzeentch's perfection, to understanding the infinite complexity of his will. They see their deformities as divine gifts, proof that they've been noticed. But what they fail to realize is that every change strips away another layer of their identity, another thread of their soul. They are not ascending. They are dissolving. In the labyrinthine temples, the so-called ascended walk among their followers like gods. Their bodies are ever shifting, their faces a kaleidoscope of what they once were. They whisper secrets that no human tongue should speak, revealing glimpses of futures that devour sanity. To look upon them too long is to lose oneself, to see all possible versions of your own death at once. Some of them laugh. Some weep. Most no longer know the difference. And still, the cults multiply. Every soul believes they will be the one to master the change, the one who will control the mutation instead of being consumed by it. They gather relics of impossible geometry, drink elixirs that warp the mind, and sacrifice memories to psychic fires in the hope that Tzeentch will grant them clarity. But there is no clarity. There is only deeper confusion, deeper transformation, deeper devotion. Because under Tzeentch, faith itself is a contagion. The more you believe, the faster you change. The faster you change, the closer you drift to madness. And the closer you come to madness, the more beautiful you appear to him. To be perfect, under Tzeentch, is to cease being yourself. The people who resist this fate do not last long. The unmutated, the stable, the unchanging, they are seen as diseased, as enemies of progress. The cults call them stillborns, and they are purged with ecstatic fervor. Purity is heresy. Sanity is rebellion. Consistency is sin. In the end, there are only two kinds of worshippers, those who are still changing, and those who have become unrecognizable. And if you listen closely past the whispers of the temples, past the chanting, past the sigh of shifting reality, you might hear the faint laughter of the changer of ways. Not mocking. Not cruel. But amused, like a child delighted by the chaos of his own creation. Because to him, all of it, the worship, the madness, the death, is simply the art of change made manifest. And the world beneath his gaze is his masterpiece. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time. Have you ever thought about what it means to run from something that already knows where you'll end up? In the domains of Tzeentch, rebellion is not only expected, it's encouraged. The changer of ways feeds on contradiction, on defiance, on the illusion of choice. So when a man rises and declares that he will break free from the cycle of mutation and madness, when a cult splinters and vows to overthrow their god, the warp itself seems to tremble with anticipation. They call themselves the pure. They dream of stability, of returning the world to order, of silencing the voices that twist their thoughts. They burn their icons, destroy their grimoires, and purge the mutated from among them. They whisper prayers to the emperor, to the old gods, to anything that is not Tzeentch. But the moment they speak those words, the very instant they imagine freedom, they are already playing his game. Because every rebellion was foreseen. Every act of defiance was written into the weave of fate before the first thought of resistance even formed. The pure think they are fighting against Tzeentch, but they are fighting for him. Each choice, each betrayal, each desperate cry another step deeper into his labyrinth. Their movements are like ripples on the surface of an ocean that he controls. They believe they are swimming to shore, when in truth, they are drowning exactly where he wants them to. Those who flee his realms fare no better. There are stories of ships that break from orbit, carrying survivors who claim they have escaped the curse of Tzeentch. For a time, they drift through the void, exulting in their deliverance. They rebuild. They hope. But then it starts again. The stars begin to shift. The maps no longer match the constellations. Their dreams fill with impossible patterns, with voices that promise safety if they only adapt. And soon, they realize they never left. The universe around them has merely changed shape to keep them contained. There is no escape from the architect of fate, because escape itself is a form of change. And change belongs to him. Some go mad upon this realization. Others accept it, falling to their knees in ecstatic surrender. The most deluded still pretend to resist, carving symbols of defiance into their flesh, not realizing those symbols are Tzeentch's own sigils, drawn by his inspiration. The changer of ways does not need to crush rebellion. He simply waits for it to bloom, twist, and fold back into his plan. Every act of defiance is another layer of the pattern. Every scream of freedom is another note in his symphony of manipulation. Even death offers no release. Those who die resisting often awaken again, reborn in new forms, carrying the same spark of defiance that led them astray before. They are caught in an infinite loop, a rebellion without end, a war already lost before it begins. And above it all, Tzeentch watches. Not with malice, but with curiosity. Because every desperate human, every failed escape, every defiant prayer adds a new thread to his masterpiece. It's not cruelty that drives him, it's fascination. The purest, coldest form of curiosity. So when you hear stories of those who tried to run, remember this: under Tzeentch, even your flight has already been foretold. Your every step is part of the dance. your rebellion, your surrender, your death, all pre-written in colors too complex for mortal eyes to see. Because you cannot run from a God who is the path you walk. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time. Have you ever wondered what happens when a person forgets not just their name, but the very idea of who they were? Under Tzeentch, that's not death. That's rebirth. In his realm, there comes a moment when even the strongest minds begin to blur. Thoughts lose edges. Memories bleed into each other. The sense of I am fades like ink in water, dissolving into the tide of ever-shifting reality. At first, it feels like madness. But soon, it feels like peace. Because in the worlds ruled by the changer of ways, the self is an obstacle, a brittle, fragile thing that resists transformation. To survive, one must let go of it entirely. The people who live long enough to reach this stage no longer use names. They are echoes, currents, reflections. They drift through cities that pulse like organs, where towers breathe and the ground hums with unspoken thought. Each step reshapes the world beneath their feet. Every emotion births color and form. It's not life as we understand it. It's existence rewritten. But the loss of identity doesn't bring freedom, it brings servitude. For once the self dissolves, there's nothing left to question him. Every fragment of every soul becomes a brush stroke in Tzeentch's infinite design. What was once individuality becomes pattern, and what was once will becomes obedience. They no longer worship him because they want to, they worship because it's all they are capable of. Some of these lost beings become pure thought, drifting motes of awareness bound to his will. Others merge into the landscape itself, becoming the shimmering architecture of his realms. A few are granted the honor of becoming familiars or servants to his daemons, hollow vessels filled with borrowed purpose. No one remembers their old lives. No one remembers what they fought for. They only remember change. The cruelest part is that they do not see their own tragedy. They believe they have achieved enlightenment, that by surrendering the self, they have found truth. They look upon those who still cling to identity as primitives, trapped in illusions of constancy. They preach the beauty of dissolution, never realizing they are already gone. In the end, under Tzeentch, identity is not destroyed by force, it is eroded by understanding. The more one learns about the nature of existence, the less sense it begins to make. Until there is nothing left but the endless, churning awareness of being part of something far greater and infinitely more terrifying. And through it all, he laughs. Not a laugh of cruelty, but of delight. The laughter of a god watching his creation finally understand that it was never theirs to begin with. For in the eyes of Tzeentch, identity is a temporary illusion, useful only until it becomes inconvenient. The mortal concept of self is a tool, a fragment of narrative that he shapes, shatters, and rewrites as easily as a word in a spell. And when the last soul forgets who it was, when the final whisper of I fades into silence, that is when Tzeentch's masterpiece is complete. Because in that moment, every mind, every thought, every dream becomes him. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time. Have you ever tried to imagine what the end of reality would feel like? Not the destruction of a world, but the unraveling of everything that defines what real even means. Under Tzeentch, the end doesn't come as fire or explosion. It comes as understanding. One moment, the skies are colors no mind can name. The next, there are no skies at all, only vast plains of thought made visible. The ground is gone, the air is gone, even the concept of up and down ceases to exist. The world folds in on itself like parchment burning in slow motion, the ink of existence dripping into the void. But this void isn't empty. It's alive. It's him. Everything that once was the cities, the dreams, the people, the hopes becomes part of a single living tapestry. Every thread pulses with thought, every shadow hums with intelligence. There is no separation between the observer and the observed. Every atom, every memory, every heartbeat whispers in unison, change is eternal. Those who remain conscious experience a kind of revelation so profound that their minds collapse trying to contain it. They see the truth, that Tzeentch isn't merely a god of change, he is change. He is the motion between every heartbeat, the spark between thought and action, the uncertainty that makes existence possible. He is the reason nothing can stay the same. In this revelation lies terror beyond measure. Because once you understand Tzeentch, you cease to exist as yourself. To comprehend him is to become part of him, to dissolve into the flow of his thought, to be rewritten as a single flicker in the endless storm of his mind. Time itself shatters. Past and future blur into an eternal, recursive present. Every choice ever made, every lie ever told, every rebellion ever crushed, they all exist simultaneously, looping endlessly within the architect's design. There was never a beginning, and there will never be an end. Only transformation. And yet, amid this boundless chaos, there is something hauntingly beautiful. Because even as the last fragments of individuality dissolve, they become something more: raw possibility, unbound creation. In their destruction, they feed the eternal cycle of becoming. The great schemer does not destroy for cruelty. He changes because he must. It is his nature. The universe itself is his canvas, and existence is his experiment. Each mutation, each war, each flicker of faith another stroke in the masterpiece of entropy. The horror of Tzeentch's reality is not that everything dies. It's that nothing ever truly does. Every ruin is reborn in a new form. Every end is a beginning disguised in pain. Every scream is a hymn, every prayer a mutation of meaning. And when reality itself collapses into that endless, churning dreamscape of thought, there are no gods and mortals, no servants and masters, only the infinite dance of change, spiraling forever. In the end, no one remembers what it was like before. Because before has been erased. It never existed. It was simply another illusion, another step in his grand design. And somewhere, in the heart of the storm, Tzeentch smiles. Because the game has never ended. It merely changed. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time. It's a question as old as sentience itself, and under Tzeentch, it's the only question that matters. Because every act of will, every decision, every flicker of thought might already be written into his ever-changing design. Across the galaxy, mortals whisper his name with both fear and fascination. Sorcerers call upon him for wisdom. Scholars study his symbols, believing they can decipher the patterns of fate. Even those who deny him, the imperial priests, the ordos of the Inquisition, cannot escape his touch. For every plan they make, every law they write, every war they wage becomes another strand in his vast, unknowable web. No one is beyond his reach. The truth is horrifying because it's inescapable. The Imperium thinks it fights chaos with order, but order itself is a form of change, a fragile structure that must adapt or die. The Eldar think they control fate through their seers and farseers, but every vision, every prophecy, is simply Tzeentch showing them the futures he allows. Even the other chaos gods, in their endless feuds and schemes, dance to the rhythm he conducts from the shadows. He is not the loudest god. Not the most brutal. Not the most obvious. But he is the one that moves everything. Every rebellion that ever began, every revolution, every dream of progress, all bear his unseen mark. Because the desire to change, to evolve, to escape what we are, that is his essence. That is his domain. And that is why he can never be defeated. Even those who oppose him give him strength. Every act of resistance, every refusal to submit, is still an act of change. And in that moment, whether they realize it or not, they serve him. The most tragic truth of life under Tzeentch is not that he destroys freedom, it's that he is freedom, weaponized against those who seek it. His gift is knowledge, but knowledge that consumes. His promise is transformation, but transformation without mercy. His love is creation, but creation that devours itself endlessly. And yet, there's something seductively human in his chaos. Because isn't that what we are? Always striving, always reaching, never content with what we have or who we are. We call it progress. We call it curiosity. We call it evolution. But in the end, it's all the same thing, our endless need to change. Perhaps that's why he finds us so amusing. Because deep down, we were his long before we ever knew his name. In the end, life under Tzeentch isn't confined to the warp. It's not just the fate of cultists and daemons. It's the truth of existence itself. Nothing stays the same. Not the stars, not the empires, not the souls that dream beneath them. Everything changes. Everything must. And when you look in the mirror tomorrow, and see someone slightly different staring back, when your thoughts feel unfamiliar, when your desires shift in ways you can't explain, maybe, just maybe, you'll understand what they meant when they said. Tzeentch doesn't find you. He awakens you. Because the horrifying reality of life under him, is that you might already be living it. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time. Have you ever felt it, that faint, electric hum at the edge of thought? That moment when you pause, for no reason, certain that something is listening? That's where it begins. Long after the cities of Tzeentch have folded into their own dreams, long after the screaming skies have fallen silent, the whisper remains. It slips between worlds, through the cracks of reality, brushing against the minds of those who dare to think too deeply. A scholar in the Imperium dreams of colors he's never seen. And wakes to find new equations scrawled across his desk in his own handwriting, equations that solve problems no human should understand. A psyker hears a voice that calls itself a friend, a teacher, a guide. It tells him truths that make him weep with joy, before they drive him mad. Even the faithful of the Emperor, those who shield their souls with prayer and fire, sometimes hear it too. A fleeting murmur in the middle of devotion. A voice that asks a single, terrible question. What if your God changes too? Most dismiss it. Some forget it. But a few cannot. They begin to notice patterns where there shouldn't be any, the way the stars shift ever so slightly between nights, the way thoughts appear in their minds that they swear are not their own. And when they try to trace the source of those thoughts, they find no beginning. Only motion. Only change. The influence of Tzeentch does not end where his domains do. It bleeds into the fabric of the galaxy, invisible but eternal. Every new idea, every rebellion, every invention that alters the course of history, each one carries a spark of him. The God of change does not rule through armies or temples. He rules through possibility. Even now, as you listen, his influence moves through words and thoughts, reshaping understanding, bending perception, weaving new meaning from the old. Perhaps you began this story as a listener. Perhaps you finish it as something else. Because that's how he works. Slowly. Quietly. Patiently. And one day, when the stars themselves tire of burning and the last empire falls into silence, the whisper will still remain soft as breath, endless as thought. And it will ask again, just as it always has. What will you become next? With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time. Tell me, do you still hear it? That faint vibration just beneath your thoughts, the rhythm that doesn't belong to your heartbeat, the pattern that wasn't there before you pressed play? It's not a sound. It's an awareness. A small, shifting pulse that reminds you that you've seen something you weren't supposed to. Most who speak of Tzeentch imagine him as distant, a god of impossible colors, of madness and mutation, lost in the tides of the warp. But what if he isn't far away at all? What if he exists in the spaces between every idea you've ever had? Every time you change your mind. Every time you break a habit. Every time you grow. The human mind is not static, it's a constant storm of reinvention. Thoughts collide, merge, dissolve, reform. You forget what you once believed and create something new from the wreckage. And in that motion, he lives. That's his true dominion, not the demonic cities or the ever-shifting skies, but the quiet revolutions inside you. When you dream of a life you haven't lived, when you crave meaning, when you fear what you could become, that's when he leans close. Not to command. Not to destroy. To watch. Because change is his altar, and thought is his prayer. Every act of imagination, every decision to become something new, feeds him. You don't need to worship him. You already do. Simply by existing, by moving forward, by refusing to stay the same, you serve his endless cycle. So if you ever wonder why the world feels uncertain, why time bends and destiny seems to whisper your name, remember, the universe itself is his canvas, and you are one of his brush strokes. Perhaps that's why he never needs to speak aloud. He doesn't have to. You do it for him every time you question, every time you dream, every time you change. And now that you've heard the story, he's a little closer than before. But don't worry. He was always there. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.